For my research paper, I decided to speak about the ecological crisis we are having. Human interaction has been the primary reason for the decay of our environment. It is because of our individualistic society that has caused the exploitation of nature and the damage to our environment. This is due to mass-producing factories, garbage disposal methods, and constant deforestation, from dumping waste into the ocean to cutting and burning entire forests. All of these actions were made for the desire of profit, and there were no steps to set up sustainable methods. Although these actions have threatened the lives and habitats of many species, they are not as concerning as the greenhouse gases we are releasing into the atmosphere. The greenhouse gases in our atmosphere are not entirely bad. At a certain level, these gases are essential to almost every living organism's survival. This is because of the greenhouse gas effect. This effect basically is when the sun sends radiation and it bounces off of our surface back into space. But our atmosphere, at a safe level, can absorb some of it and keep the heat and allows that to sustain a certain temperature that allows our species and many other species to thrive. However, because of the excess greenhouse gases that we pollute our atmosphere with, it increases the density of our atmosphere and it results in the sun's radiation to be trapped in for longer periods of time. And with the sun constantly sending those radiation, it only increases our temperature at a significant rate, where soon it'll start causing a lot more disasters than we have currently. This endangers our global ecosystem and can intensify many of the natural disasters we have today, from the power of hurricanes to rising ocean levels. Climate change can result in devastating results that could leave entire populations in distress. We are already having issues with our current refugee crisis, and it won't be comparable to the refugee crisis that will originate from the effects that climate change will have. Climate change isn't just random environmental disasters like earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. It is directly connected to the human fingerprint that society has created due to our capitalistic society. We should not only look at the issue as an environmental one, but as an ethical, cultural, and spiritual crisis. It is because of the individualistic and profit-driven desires that run our planet which has generated an enormous amount of pollution into our environment. Because of these production and consumption habits, it has encouraged the exploitation of every resource on this planet at an unsustainable rate. This exploitative mindset has created an image that there is an infinite amount of resources. Even though this is not true, we can see an abundance of products and food at our fingertips just if we walk into our neighborhood grocery store. But this is only seen in developed nations. While we are able to consume the benefits of the unnecessary exploitation of the planet, those in developing nations don't have the vital resources to survive. And through all of these human interactions, we can find many violations of Catholic social teachings. These teachings that apply to this situation are the life and dignity of the human person, rights and responsibilities, and care for God's creation. The first theme states that every person is precious, that people are more important than things, and that the measure of every institution is whether it threatens or enhances the life and dignity of a human person. So our lack of concern for those in developing nations and the suffering that they face due to our production and consumption habits presents a clear violation to appreciate the life and dignity of the human person. For rights and responsibilities, every person has the fundamental right to life and the right to those things required for human decency. So while only developed nations thrive off the exploitation of global resources and consume at a rate where there's not enough for all, it violates the theme of rights and responsibilities. Only a few populations benefit from the global harvesting of resources, while many others are struggling to find vital needs. For the violation of the care for God's creation, I wanted to present some statistics provided through the United Nations Fifth Assessment Report. Oceans have warmed up, the amounts of snow and ice have diminished, and the sea levels have risen. From 1901 to 2010, the global average sea level rose to 19 centimeters, as oceans expanded due to warming and ice melted. The sea ice extent in the Arctic has shrunk in every successive decade since 1979. The world's oceans will warm, and ice melt will continue. The average sea level rise is predicted to be 24 to 30 centimeters by 2065 and 40 to 63 by 2100, relative to the reference period of 1986 to 2005. Most aspects of climate change will persist for many centuries even if emissions are stopped. These are just a few of the statistics that were stated, and there are many other facts that scientists can already predict about climate change. But even with these facts and predictions, nations have continued to ignore the significance of the issue and continue to pollute the environment. The theme Care for God's Creation states, "We are called to protect people and the planet, living our faith in relationship with all of God's creation." This environmental challenge has fundamental moral and ethical dimensions that cannot be ignored. So our society's constant neglect and ignorance of the cause has presented a clear violation of this Catholic social teaching. All of these violations show how our society has either doubted the significance of the issue or held the search for a solution somewhere in the future. However, with the start of the Kyoto Protocol and other global commitments made, there should no longer be any excuses left. We need to start looking toward the future for not us, but for our children and the future generations. We need to set legal policies to enforce manufacturers and other businesses to strictly limit their carbon emissions and waste production. We have seen the disappointing results when we trust in the words of corporations that they will change their methods. So we need to enforce them by enacting strict laws and penalties if they fail to implement sustainable practices. As for us, we need to make more mindful decisions for both us currently and for future generations. We need to be the influencers that will encourage others to step up and follow through. By purchasing products that were produced through sustainable operations and only in quantities that are necessary, we need to teach others how to live sustainably. Additionally, we need to implement better waste disposal methods and increase our focus on recycling and non-perishable goods. We need to start implementing solutions now and not save it for tomorrow, as we have, or else we will leave our children with more issues than what we have now.